And it's time, time.
Hey everybody, it's Hannah Saulic, the head of video here at CinemaBlend, with Sean O'Connell, our managing editor and author of the Release the Snyder Cut book, which is now out.
Hannah, I'm holding it.
Oh,
I know.
had it ready.
Look, I got it right here. It doesn't leave my side. It's so embarrassing. I know, it's terrible.
It keeps me awake. It should.
Well, we are here today to discuss that beautiful clip that Zack shared at IGN FanFest over the weekend, which was supposed to be, he said they didn't really know what it was going to be used for originally. They had thought about maybe using it as a title sequence and then maybe thought about using it as some of the marketing leading up to the theatrical cut when it was still supposed to be Zack's cut.
Okay.
For me, the whole thing that it really struck was just Zack really reinforcing that his heroes in the Snyderverse are more gods among men. And that's obviously very clear in a lot of the imagery, which we will break down.
Absolutely.
So do we want to kind of start? I guess I'll just pull this video up.
Yeah, please do. I want to talk a bit about the flow of the technology. I messaged you to almost ask, like, did we see Motherbox technology in BVS? And I think the scene that I'm thinking of was that scene where they went back into the Kryptonian goo and they saw Tiny Steppenwolf. All of it has this kind of fluidity to it. It looks liquid almost.
We see a Motherbox too when Diana's looking at the footage of the other Justice League members and Silas is using one to save Cyborg.
Yeah. And does it look this fluid?
It's got similar movements.
Okay.
And if I'm wrong, I mean, you guys will see it when I edit this.
Yeah. It reminds me a bit of Kryptonian technology. It reminds me a bit of the Motherbox technology. So I like that there's continuity. It looks beautiful either way.
It really does. So moving on to Cyborg. In this first shot, we see his football helmet and then a car tire, which we assume to be from the crash that will ultimately lead to him becoming Cyborg.
And I guess Junkie XL was on the Vodka stream recently and was talking about, I'm pretty sure this is where he mentioned it, that there's like a 15-minute long sequence that is Cyborg's entire backstory. So I'm guessing that's what we'll see. Those will be the football clips that we see. That'll be his mom in the stands. I assume they'll be driving home from the game at that point when the accident happens. I want to point out, too, in this montage that it's snowing in the Cyborg bits and then raining in the Batman bits. So I guess that's pretty...
What do you think that symbolizes?
In the football scenes, is it snowing or no? Mm-hmm. Is it?
It is.
Okay, then that to me signifies that this is just more of a visual reference of the time of the year.
Does it signify time?
Yeah, and then rain on the Batman when we get to him in a minute is just because he seems to live his life in a showery depression haze.
So do I.
What else stood out in the Cyborg montage?
So then we go to the wide of Cyborg, which is very clearly referencing The Vitruvian Man by Leonardo da Vinci. And the common interpretation of the Vitruvian Man is just that it illustrated basically what da Vinci thought was a divine connection between the human form and the universe.
Oh, okay.
Which is fitting, I think, for Cyborg, obviously being part human, part machine. And it could also emphasize the connection between Cyborg and the mother boxes.
I also want you to talk about the I-beam.
I was wondering, is that a nightmare connection?
It could be. Because of those two together, those are the two characters that we've been rumored to get nightmare introductions or portals into the nightmare. But there's still that shot of Cyborg in his football jacket looking over at Victor Stone standing with his parents. And, that's not something that we've seen in any of the marketing outside of Zack sharing it on Vero. So there, you're right. There's a parallel there between the Cyborg mother box sketch. What are these things called? Carvings? I don't know what they are.
I don't know.
Connecting to Batman. So then we get over to Batman. And the Batman mythology and the imagery that's associated with this is very much his origin, but it's tied to specifically imagery that we've seen in BVS. And we get the gunshot and the pearls, of course, the mausoleum, which probably has some comic reference to it because there's been so many interpretations of Batman. But when I see that mausoleum, the Wayne Mausoleum, I am immediately drawn to that opening scene from BVS where little Bruce runs away from the funeral procession and almost can't stand to be there anymore. And that's the moment that he falls down into the cave and gets introduced to the bats. And I pointed out, too, Dick Grayson's tombstone. That was one of the cool Easter eggs that I didn't expect to see until I was sort of going through this frame by frame. Joker, played by Jared Leto, killed Dick Grayson as Robin. And that's a cool little nod. Another loss that Batman suffered.
Mm-hmm. Before we kind of talk about the symbolism behind Batman's pose, I just wanted to... So obviously the gun that they show at the beginning of this is the gun that killed Bruce's parents, but for a split second when I first watched it, I was like, haha, Zack's being like, you to people who were like, Batman doesn't have guns. And then I was like, oh wait, no. But I still like to believe that maybe there was a little bit of that in there. But that's just my warped view of the world too. I was like, ha, and then I was like, oh wait, no, this is not what we're doing.
I think Zach would like that, actually. We get the bat signal, obviously, in the longer sort of pose out to Batman, and you can talk about the art history bit of it. I liked that I didn't catch until it lit up. It's kind of cool that every time like a lightning strike hits, you see other visuals in these, and I saw the Joker card, which I hadn't seen before.
I didn't see that.
There's a Joker card hanging over the on the right-hand side that looks to be Wayne Manor. And then on the bottom left-hand side is the theater marquee, and it has the Mask of Zorro on it. So again, it's Zack sort of referencing the moment that Bruce is born as Batman, the loss of his parents, and more references too. Giving more fodder to the people who make the joke, ooh, I hope this movie shows us how Bruce's parents died.
Well, it's so important to who Batman is. But anyway, so which kind of ties into the art history reference. So the main consensus is that Batman's pose references Saint Sebastian. And Saint Sebastian's story is really about resilience, bouncing back despite horrible things that may have happened in your past, which is obviously very fitting for the Snyderverse's Batman. And then in Zack Snyder's Justice League, we expect Batman to really begin and try to overcome a lot of his past and not be defined by it anymore.
And at 39 seconds before we transition away, the word justice is at Bruce's feet. I'm going to interpret it as, get justice for the death of Superman. And the only way that he could see forward in doing that is to build a team that will protect the planet.
He said the age of heroes would never come again.
It has to.
Flash one is pretty straightforward, right? It's Nora Allen's tombstone. Again, a defining moment for Barry Allen. It's the microscope that signifies his forensic science.
Well, isn't that how he gets his powers too?
There are alternate origin stories to how he gets his powers. Sometimes it's a lab accident. Sometimes it's him getting hit by lightning. There's various ways that he can. But more often than not, he got a job in the criminal investigation department because he wanted to sort of investigate who actually killed his mom. It takes until you get to the wide view that you see the jail cell, which will reference his father being wrongfully imprisoned. Oh, so then other references too. You were talking about the fact that he's like on a clock face, and I was pointing out the gears of a clock that seemed to be, but you saw some other sort of interpretation of that.
Time travel.
Yes.
Okay, so talking about the art history reference, this is the statue of Mercury, and Mercury is the Roman god of travelers.
Oh.
And Flash is basically positioned a little bit like the hands of a clock, which some people think could be a nod to Flashpoint or just time travel in general.
Okay.
And then I saw something on Twitter, and I'll throw it up here to give y'all credit, but it was a reference to Watchmen, where it says, my father was a watchmaker. And then obviously Billy Crudup, who plays the Flash's father in Justice League, was Dr. Manhattan in Zack's Watchmen. So that's a fun little Easter egg there as well.
Put it past him as well too. There's also there's three little symbols that are underneath the microscope on the right hand side, and they look deliberate, but I can't tell what those are. So if you see those and you're watching this video and they mean something to you, please tell me.
What's on your weird mind?
All right, this next one is my favorite. I think this one looks the most badass. It's Aquaman, and it's a Poseidon statue. That's right?
Yes, it is.
You see, as you transition over, a bottle of booze, which is very Arthur Curry. In Snyder's interpretation, a bottle of booze is very Arthur Curry. I love the fact that on the bottle is the Stone Quarry logo, which is Zack's production house. That's a very cool nod. The tentacles of the sea monster, you get to Arthur's trident and fish swimming by and the Atlantean building structures that are spotted. But the one element that stood out to me, which I thought is really cool, is a very deliberate shot of Arthur's boot. Like you get his boot and his leg, and the other leg seems to be sort of hidden by the tentacles, and I thought that was a great way to sort of split he's part, of the sea, he's part of the land. He's got that sort of workman boot mentality. He's a little bit more blue collar than anybody else in the league. Really cool way to visually symbolize the split that tears at Arthur and the places where he feels that he belongs. There's a moment too at 106. This is one of those scenes where, like, when you go back and rewatch this montage, there's a canister at 106 that I'm sure is pretty important, but I can't tell what it is. So if anybody can take a look at what that canister is, like, it looks like something that would hold ashes or something. I don't know what the significance is. So hopefully if you see it, tell me, and I'll read the comments down below.
I feel like that's probably something really obvious that we're both missing.
Yeah, there's going to be another one too that pops up later that I'm going to ask you what it is, and I can't tell what it is.
People are a little slow.
This one sort of goes through a little bit of a blur, and I'm looking at like triangle shapes and trying to figure out what they are, and then...
Are you talking about the Kent farmhouse?
Do you see the Kent farmhouse? Where
At
am I looking?
111, yeah. And then there's like the tornado next to it.
Oh, what? I didn't see this at all. Okay, hold on.
I'm afraid I didn't see it because I wasn't looking.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's the roof of the Kent farmhouse.
And then the tornado's right there.
Dude, I didn't see that at all.
You were
I
looking
didn't see
too
that
closely.
At all. I was.
It's like one of those things you have
okay.
to like look away and then be like, oh.
That's what it is, because I was trying to figure out, there's that transition from Arthur to, and then you get to this. It looks like water to me at first. Okay, cool. Good shot. I'm glad you saw that.
I'm a journalist.
We get the bus that Clark rescued. We get the world engine. We get the Superman clearly messianic pose, as all of them are. And you'll tell me the art history reference to this in the bit. We get the Codex ring. That's very significant. We get, okay, so that spear on the right-hand side is, I think, the Kryptonian spear that he uses to kill Doomsday. Do you agree with me on that?
Yeah.
I'm thinking that that's the one that he picks up and charges at Doomsday with, which again sets up his sacrifice at the end of BVS.
Did it surprise you? Like, when I was watching this, I was expecting Superman to be last. So when we went from Aquaman to Superman, I was like, wait, what? It makes sense, I think, why Wonder Woman was last. But when I was watching it, I was like, interesting.
Wait, why?
Interesting choice.
Why does that make sense? Because you're right. I think Superman should be last.
So I think, well, I don't know. This is just my speculation, is I'm wondering if it's hinting at Wonder Woman really kind of stepping into that leader of the team role. It was Joan of Arc that Zach's referencing with her pose. So I'll kind of explain more why when we get to that. But in the moment, I was just like, I thought Superman would be last because this is kind of like and it's not Superman's story, it's everybody's story. But I was just kind of...
I think it's, well, yeah, that's a good question. Whose story is Justice League, right? It's all of them, of course. But I always thought it was more Bruce's story because he's kind of putting the team together. But each of them should get an emphasis. But then Superman's not going to be present.
But maybe it's Wonder Woman's story.
Yeah, it very well could be Wonder Woman's story. Again, we're getting a 4-hour cut. There's going to be a lot of room for all of these characters to get development. All right, so we end on Wonder Woman. And what'd you see?
So just
What
going
stood
back
out?
to because I forgot to do the art history reference for Superman. It's the Ascension of Christ, obviously, by Rembrandt.
Right. Now, what about the Man of Steel scene in the church? Do you think that gets called out for being too on the nose?
No, I don't think that's too on the nose. No, did you guys see Captain Marvel? That is all on the nose.
Yes.
No, I don't mind it. I think it helps to really set up this idea of Superman being a god in our universe and really hitting that home, because that wasn't, when you think about like when Man of Steel came out, that was not something we were really used to thinking about comic book movies. Was like, oh yeah, I guess you're right. If this realistically did happen, we wouldn't just be like, oh cool, it's a superhero. We'd be like having a lot of questions about, not to get too serious, but like religion and all this other stuff about what's out there. So I don't think it's too on the nose, because I think you kind of had to have that. But
that's also a very different approach that Zack was taking, which wasn't used prior to this, and speaks to a lot of why it took me a while to get used to the way that he was approaching these stories of just like, this is how you would realistically act if one of these beings showed up in your universe. And the fact that he leans into so heavily that a lot of people would fear him and reject him the way that Batman does, that's again another weird way to approach your first introductions of Batman and Superman, where we all grew up with the fact that they were like teammates, and they're going to work together to save the planet. But in Zack's world, and he's right, there's a lot of distrust, and there's a lot of, and that's sort of a huge component of Batman, being distrustful of everybody and suspicious, and that took some getting used to.
And with Superman too, on the flip side of that, there's that scene in BVS where everybody's like putting their hand on Superman after he saves.
Oh yeah.
It's like he's peppering that imagery in there, and he's been very clearly alluding to like Superman as this Christ-like figure in all of his films. So
I think we're gonna get more of that in Justice League. I think you're gonna get a lot more of that in Justice League. All right, we end on Wonder Woman.
Yes.
And again, it's a montage of elements from her development in the DCU. You get the poison gas masks.
Dr. Poison.
Terrible.
Did you get my thing about the heart? Do you think that that's right?
Okay, I think there's like a lot of things that could be going on with the heart. I think what you're saying, if you want to explain yours, totally makes sense, and then I'll explain what I saw.
Oh, cool. My interpretation was that her heart is essentially like there's a flash lightning that clearly cuts the heart in half. I would assume that was her heartbrokenness over the loss of Steve Trevor, her one true love. Diana has almost removed herself from the fight for a very long period of time because of the way that she had been exposed to kind of the evilness and selfishness of man, but also putting herself out there and falling in love with somebody and then having to see that person sacrifice himself. So that's kind of what I interpreted, because the first time you get an image of a heart, it's a little bit like, why are we looking at a biologically accurate representation of an organ here? Yeah. So what'd you think?
My first thought is that just Zeus giving her life, like literally her origin story.
Oh,
but that might be a little too surface level. But I like the Steve Trevor thing because his plane shows up later, and then so does his watch. So he's definitely present.
Still ticking.
Let's jump to 132, because there's a bunch of images in here that I think
Please tell me what you said about this baseball cap.
So who else has a baseball cap in the Wonder Woman origin? Am I overlooking anybody in the Wonder Woman origin?
I don't think it's a baseball cap, but I like what you said about who.
Okay. So Jeff Johns on social media in the Snyder Cut family is identified often for his baseball cap. And a lot of times when the fandom wants to reference him without mentioning his name in a Voldemort type way, they just put the blue baseball cap icon. So I'm watching this Wonder Woman montage play out, and I'm like, why the F is a baseball cap here? And I'm trying to look at the symbolism on it, which to me looks like snakes. They look like snakes sort of intertwined, which again is probably me reading too much into this, but the movement tends to refer to Jeff Johns as a snake who is interfering with Zack's vision all along. And I think this is in here as a direct nod to Jeff Johns. This is my interpretation. This really is funny. A baseball cap that's included in here with snakes on the emblem, because what else could it be? Do you see something else?
You know, like that photo of Wonder Woman that Zack posted, which is like her with the head? Is that helmet of the head that the head is on?
Oh, that's interesting. It could be.
So the little like knob thing on the top of the helmet looks very, very similar to the knob on the helmet that she's holding, but we can't see the back of that helmet in this photo.
All right, so when you pull out in the wide angle shot of Wonder Woman before she gets consumed by the stuff that's on the, you do see the sort of spiky thing at the top, which is probably symbol
you
of
do. Yeah, okay.
You see the spiky thing at the top. I'm still standing by the fact that that's a baseball cap.
I like that idea.
I think that's a deliberate baseball cap nod.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's great.
Here's what I think probably happened. I bet you that they showed the helmet in there, and someone said to Zack, like, hey, that looks like a baseball cap too. And he was like, yeah, let's do it.
Or he was like, I know.
I'm okay being wrong on that one, but that's what I think.
I really enjoy that theory.
All right, so you play the clip out, and for the first time you see over her shoulder in the wide angle, that looks like an old camera to me. Right? Like that's an old camera with and that signifies getting the team's picture taken, which is the photo that ends up in Bruce's hands that signifies to him that Wonder Woman has been around forever. And that's it, right? That kind
No,
of
we have to talk about
through?
the art history reference for Wonder Woman.
Oh, good.
Because
Yes,
it's interesting. Okay. So this is referencing Joan of Arc.
Oh, nice.
Obviously, Joan of Arc is a feminist icon, and so is Wonder Woman. But the way I interpret Joan of Arc's story is more about like fearlessness and leadership. So my thinking is that the connection here could be, we saw it a little bit in theatrical cut it was horribly executed, where Bruce is kind of like, where were you to Diana, talking about how she's kind of been away for a while and not stepping into Superman's shoes. So I think part of what we're gonna see from Wonder Woman is her kind of struggling with that, like, do I take on this leadership role that should be filled by Superman and really stepping into that? So I think that could be alluding to some of those themes that we're gonna see. And then something else, when you go to the like wide of Wonder Woman, it almost looks like she's being burned, and Joan of Arc was burned at the stake. So my thinking is, because a lot of people think that Wonder Woman is dead in the Nightmare timeline, that this could kind of symbolize her having to be sacrificed in a way in the Nightmare timeline.
That would be tough. You think we might see that? That's possible.
Well, I don't know if we'll see it in Zack Snyder's Justice League, but perhaps in what was supposed to be Justice League 2.
Right.
How can you say that? What is the matter with you?
What about the chain? Do you have an interpretation for the chain?
They're all kind of chained in a way.
It's really deliberate in hers, though,
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of interfering with the sword. I don't know. It could just be a visual style.
Well, maybe that could mean, like, it could symbolize that she's not, giving up, Like, she's fighting back against it more so than...
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what... maybe I'm getting confused with other films, too, but I'm thinking of, like, the link in the chain being unbroken, or for some reason that stands out to me as significant dialogue that I can't remember if it's from any of Snyder's DC films or not, or if it's just something that's been carried over from other ones. But it is fairly clear that the mother box opening up to sort of backlight the two characters, the two that it consumes, is Wonder Woman and Superman. It's kind of interesting, too, that Zack has talked about the fact that his sequel to this movie was going to be primarily set in the Nightmare timeline.
Sans Wonder Woman?
Probably.
I'm looking back, too, and the transition from Superman to Wonder Woman has more of those beams like that we saw from the Cyborg Batman transition.
Okay.
And it almost like explodes, or it looks like it's about to explode her mother box.
Oh, I see, yeah. Yeah, true.
I don't think this is gonna end super well for her. That's just my theory.
Well, that's neat.
But we'll find out soon enough. Do you wanna tease some of our exciting upcoming coverage that we have?
Yes.
In the works?
Oh, wait, you do it, because I know you sent me that. I know you sent me that list, and I don't have it handy. Do you remember what it is?
I work with children.
We know we're going to get a link. I know this much. We're going to get a link to see the movie soon. And by the time we next record an episode together, there's a very good chance
Fingers
that you and I will have seen the
crossed.
Snyder Cut. Yeah. Hashtag if it happens.
Yeah.
There's a very good chance that we might have... Boy, all things considered, Hannah, there's a good chance we might actually speak to Zack before we record again next.
Don't quote me, all right?
What are some of the things that we're going to break down
Yes,
for when the movie's out?
We want to do kind of an initial spoiler-free reaction. That way people who haven't seen it can kind of watch that and not worry about spoilers. And then after everybody's had a chance to see it, we are going to do a full in-depth spoiler review and break some things down. And then I assume we'll obviously have a lot to say about whatever this big cliffhanger is at the end.
Yeah, the ending more than anything else is going to be something we're going to want to focus on.
Yes, and then we'll just have to see what other angles come out of a 4-hour movie.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot to talk about.
Thank you guys, of course, for tuning into all of these videos. We hope you guys enjoyed our analysis of the Mother Box origin story. If we missed anything that you guys picked up on, hit us in the comments down below. Make sure you keep it here on CinemaBlend for all your Snyder Cut needs, and we will be talking about the film and hopefully having Zack Snyder here with us very, very soon. So you want to make sure you hit subscribe and turn on your notifications so every time we drop a video, you guys will be the first ones to come and watch it.